Hello everybody, welcome to A Traveller's Guide to China. In this video I'm going to be talking about the Great Wall of China, one of China's most famous visitor attractions and one that I visited 4 times when I was in China. I'm going to talk you through a presentation I've made about the Great Wall of China. The photos that you can see in here, most of which have been taken by myself on my visits to the wall. I've been to 4 different sections of the wall and I've been looking a bit of the history and some information about the Great Wall. First of all, let's look at what the Great Wall of China is called in Chinese. So in Mandarin Chinese it is called Changcheng, which really just means long wall. The Great Wall of China is a UNESCO World Heritage Site which was built between the years of 403 BC and 1644 AD. And that sounds like a really long time to be building a wall, but it wasn't being built constantly during that time. In fact, different dynasties built bits of it and then it was left for a while and then they built more parts. In total, it measures 13,171 miles. And to put that into context for the UK, that's as far as Land's End to John O'Groats 22 times over. So can you imagine a wall that's the full length of the UK 22 times? That doesn't really seem possible. That's because it's not just one single continuous wall. The Great Wall is actually a network of many different walls which were built at different times. And most of these walls are no longer there. In this map you can see different walls built during different dynasties in different places. Some of them are built in the same place as previous walls, so where they were rebuilt or added onto. But we can see that the Great Wall of China is not just one wall. Some parts of the wall look like a dry stone wall, such as this part here on the left, which I took this photo near Fangcheng in Henan province. This is part of the Chu State Great Wall, and this part of the wall wasn't attached to any other parts of the wall. It was like 3 sides of a square shape. I was walking in this mountain park and someone pointed out this wall to me and said, "Oh, that's our Great Wall." So it wasn't particularly well signposted or obvious even walking past it. It's not particularly high, but it would have been an important wall at its time. In the second picture we can see a piece of the Han Dynasty Great Wall near Dunhuang, which was made of packed earth. But the part of the Great Wall that most people know about is the Ming Dynasty Great Wall. Several parts of this wall have been restored and are open to visitors. It runs for about 5,000 miles from Jiayuguan in the west all the way over to Shanhaiguan in the east, where the wall meets the Yellow Sea. And even this wall is not one continuous wall. There are several different branches that join together. So starting in the west in the Gobi Desert, we can see the first beacon tower. This is the westernmost point of the Ming Dynasty Great Wall, and the job of the beacon tower was to signal. It's for communication. So this tower used to be much taller. It's just an earth mound that's left, but it used to be taller, and the soldiers would light a fire at the top of the tower. Then further down the wall people could see this fire, they would light their own fire, and the signal would travel down the length of the wall to warn the army and the soldiers that danger was coming. So this part of the wall at least would have beacon towers at regular intervals all the way along it. In the second picture you can see that the Great Wall here is not made of bricks, it's made of packed earth. Moving along a little bit, we come to the overhanging Great Wall. This is a part of the Great Wall that was recently been restored. It's called overhanging because in some parts it is very steep. Originally this part would have been built of packed earth, but this part has now been built from bricks, and then it has packed earth on top to make it look more authentic, but it's now stronger and better for walking along. And then shortly further along the wall we come to Jiayuguan Fort. This was the first crossing point that people would reach when they came from the west. So you can see it's a large fort that's recently been rebuilt to make it much stronger. You can see in the distance behind the fort there are mountains with snow on the top. So even though we're in the desert and it's the middle of summer, there's still snow on the mountains. And in the second picture you can see the Great Wall here is a rather thin wall made of packed earth. It's quite tall, so it'll be difficult for people to get over, but you wouldn't be able to walk along this part of the wall. And the third picture, that is me standing outside Jiayuguan Fort. Moving further to the east, we come to Badaling. This is the most popular section of the Great Wall for tourists to visit. And this part is often used in photographs, so you may well have seen this part. In 2018, almost 10 million visitors visited the Great Wall at Badaling. As you can see, the day I went was in the winter, but it was a lovely clear day. Not too many people were there. In 2019 they brought in quotas to limit the number of people that go there each day. A bit further to the east is Mutianyu. This is another very popular part of the wall for tourists to visit. It's also very close to Beijing, so it's easy to access. But you can see some spectacular views up in the mountains of the wall snaking off into the distance. This part of the wall includes several watchtowers. So this is places where soldiers would stand guard and keep an eye out on the surrounding countryside. This section of the wall was originally built in the 6th century, but it was rebuilt as part of the Ming Great Wall. So although lots of new parts of the wall were built during the Ming Dynasty, they also used some of the old wall as theirs. And over to the east, the easternmost point of the Ming Dynasty Great Wall is Shanhaiguan and the Old Dragon's Head. This is where the Great Wall meets the Yellow Sea. It's called Laolongtou in Chinese, which means Old Dragon's Head, because it looks like a dragon leaning down and drinking water from the sea. You can see in the first picture the part that looks like the dragon's head, and there are 3 little windows there in the final watchtower, and the second picture is looking out of one of those windows at the beach. And you don't tend to think of the Great Wall being beside the beach, but there it is. And in the third picture, that's me standing right at the end of the Great Wall, on the dragon's nose, if you like. So I have visited the Ming Dynasty Great Wall 4 times. So from one end in the west at Jiayuguan in the desert, all the way to Shanhaiguan and the Old Dragon's Head in the east, and a couple of times in the central part near Beijing. Why was the Great Wall built? Well, the main purpose of the Great Wall was for defence, to keep out invaders from the north, such as from Mongolia or nomadic tribes that lived in the north. It was also important for border control. So the Great Wall was usually built on the northern part of the ruling dynasty at that time. So the borders of countries move over time, which is why the walls were not always in the same place. They were also important for trade and immigration, so defence during war times, but during peace times they could also be a place for people to trade with each other, and they would have several gates and control towers where immigration or emigration might be allowed at times as well. What is it made from? Well, as we've seen, most of the Ming Dynasty Great Wall was made from granite bricks, such as in the picture you can see there. But other parts were made from packed earth, as we've seen, stones and even wood. But many of the earth, stone and wood sections are no longer there. They've not survived. However, some parts of what is known as the wall were not actually built up. Some of them were dug down as trenches. Sometimes they would use natural mountain ridges to form part of the wall, and even in some parts the wall is replaced by a river. But all of these different features together make up the wall as it is known. And what features does the wall have? So you might just think it's one single featureless wall, but it included beacon towers, as we've seen, 7,000 watchtowers, garrisons, stables, gates and barracks. Soldiers were deployed to the wall during the Ming Dynasty. Over 1 million soldiers were there, and they also lived at the wall with their horses, so the wall included different kinds of buildings for that as well. Who built the wall? Well, the wall was mostly built using forced labour, such as prisoners, soldiers and peasants. So people would be told, this is your job now, this is your duty to help with the building of the wall. And over the years, thousands of people died building the Great Wall. Can the Great Wall be seen from space? Now, you might have heard that the Great Wall of China is the only man-made object that can be seen from space. But is this true? Well, it's kind of true and kind of not true. So, the Great Wall of China can be seen from space, such as the International Space Station, but not from outer space, and it cannot be seen from the moon. But if you want to see the Great Wall from inner space, you have to know exactly where to look, and the weather has to be in your favour. However, it's far from the only thing that can be seen. Many man-made objects can be seen from that distance as well. Okay, well, that is my brief introduction to the Great Wall of China. It is a fantastic place to visit. Before I went there, I thought maybe it was going to be a bit overhyped. Maybe, it's just a wall, it can't be that good. But it really is a fascinating place to visit. The countryside is so stunning around there, and it really feels like you're just standing on a part of history. So I would thoroughly recommend the Great Wall of China. If you go to China, you must visit the wall. So that's the end of my video. Please press the thumbs up if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and I will see you again next time on another Traveller's Guide video. Thank you, goodbye.